Dear friends, welcome. We welcome all of you here in London. We are also streaming on our YouTube channel, but without including anyone from the public, so that we can benefit and reach really friends from all the way from Asia Pacific to North America, passing from Europe and Africa. We welcome all of you to today's contemplation, a Gnostic contemplation. We will see that the focus of the text that will be presented is around the essence of the human being, but also the reality that we all experience. And so this duality, which is typical of Gnostic groups, and that we experience as human beings, all of us, and how to bridge this duality, a path of self-discovery, a path of transformation that the Golden Rosicrucian presents and supports its pupils and members on. And before we do that, we would like to invite the friends from home, but also all of you to visit our website, goldenrosicrucian.org, where you will find really a wealth of resources from contemplations like today's to public presentations, books, audiobooks, podcasts, all for free, all accessible. And for those who wish to maybe take a step further, there is also some deepenings. There is an introduction on the Gnostic philosophy of the Golden Rosicrucian, which is a series of 12 presentations, which you can read or you can listen. And then there is also the possibility of becoming a member, and maybe we'll discuss that a bit later. For the moment, we thank in advance our friends Julie and Dennis, who will be reading this contemplation. And yeah, we wish each other to take full advantage of this moment where we step out of the chaos of today's life and we create together a moment of reflection, a moment of inner silence, and hopefully a moment of true connection, connection to that essence in all of us. If you give me 1 minute, I'll just sort the technical part of it, and then we get into it. So there was a question already here in London.
Sorry.
No, it's completely fine. Yeah, no, that's great. We'll take the question and we can, that's a great start for the exchange later. So the question is, well, what is the Golden Rosicrucian? What is the golden part? What is the rose? What is the cross?
Yeah.
Is it a religion? Is it what is this? And yeah, that will be a great start for the discussion after the contemplation. So thank you for your question. And if the friends from home have questions, they can put them in the chat as we go along, and then we'll convey them to the panel.
The great work will begin in the heart. In the heart, the rosebud will unfold its petals. You will not be surprised that we, as Rosicrucians, frequently use the symbol of the blossoming rose to refer to the process of the developing new consciousness. The rose that is attached to the heart of the cross is a powerful symbol with a potential connection that exists in each of us between creator and creature, between spirit and matter. The cross is our space-time appearance that was born some time ago and will have a certain end. The rosebud is the essence of the spark of perfect divine light that is present in our hearts, called the divine spark of the Spirit. When this divine spark within us is touched by the divine light, the omnipresent love, it will respond to this and can then reveal itself within us. When we notice it, when we experience something of its presence, we can speak of the eyes of our hearts opening. You are all more or less familiar with the functioning of the eyes in our head. They enable us to perceive things when there is light. If there is no light, or if our eyes are closed, then there is no visual perception at that moment. We can, however, form an image of what we have seen before with our natural consciousness. And we also know that light, like the light from our sun, and even that of a candle, is a very complicated phenomenon. White light passing through a prism is split into the 7 colours of the spectrum, or a rainbow. Additionally, there are wavelengths of light that we cannot perceive with our eyes, such as infrared light, which we feel as well. Light travels at a speed of nearly 300,000 kilometers, approximately 186,000 miles per second, which is the highest possible speed in the universe. And just as our eyes respond to the light of the sun, so the eyes of our heart respond to light of an entirely different order. Our ordinary eyes see what is earthly. The eyes of the heart perceive what is spiritual. The light that is perceived through the eyes of the heart obeys its own laws, its own perfect order. This light has special properties, and we use different terms to refer to it, such as love light, gnosis light, seven light, or the light force. This light is omnipresent and is therefore not subject to time, space, or speed, yet it connects us with eternity. It knows no shadow. It is the love light that ignites the desire for freedom within us and protects us during the unfolding of our karma. It is gnosis light that unlocks the knowledge of the heart within us, the knowledge that helps us realize who we are, who we truly are. It is gnosis light that permeates our bodies and provides us with the building blocks with which a new light garment for the soul is formed. This light is pure spirit force, and spirit force is like a divine sun. It is called Vulcan, and this is the sun behind the sun. This sun awakens, restores, and guides the divine spark within human beings back home. The spiritual sun is the sun of the original nature, and not the fiery ball we see in the sky during daylight hours. It is the state of our heart that determines whether we can experience that spiritual sun. The more pure and clean our hearts are, the more easily the light can penetrate into them. The purity of our desires, the purity of our motives, the purity of our love. When we begin the process of purifying our hearts and examining ourselves daily regarding our desires, our intentions, and our focus, we will experience that the developing purity of the heart has great consequences. Our ego-driven desires diminish. Our thinking becomes less egocentric, and our actions align accordingly. As the heart becomes more pure, it becomes light permeable. From the free space in the heart, the light can then circulate within us. And with that help, consciousness of the new life in eternity can arise within our space-time appearance. In this context, we also speak of the birth of the new soul. Our space-time appearance also has a soul, or vitality, seen as our life force or survival urge, as the drive that moves us forward as our character. Here, we also include the totality of our desires, emotions, and thoughts, adding to that the subconscious and karma from previous incarnations. Together, these all form the basis of our vitality, our identity, that with which we and others identify ourselves. We use the term new soul as the connection that can arise between the two essences within our being, the divine and the earthly, the eternal and the temporary. And with our current vitality, and our current consciousness, we can assist that light force to help that new soul to be born. We can see this as the preparation phase, because we can contribute to allowing this new soul to grow and become conscious within us. Everything depends on the extent to which the light of the spiritual sun can shine in us and through us. It depends on this light being able to work so powerfully that the rose in the center of our being blossoms fully, so that its petals unfold one by one. The petals symbolize the different aspects or qualities of the new soul.
This inevitably goes hand in hand with another important change, namely a conscious surrender of who we are, what we want, what we think we need, and what are we focused on, to the guidance of the new soul. What you pay less attention to diminishes. What receives attention can grow. Once the eyes of our heart are active within us, an important inner knowing arises in us. With the eyes of the heart, we see how it is possible to connect with our temporary life, with the new life in eternity. We begin to realize more and more intensely that we are, at the deepest level, a dual being with a biological sensory consciousness and an awakening soul consciousness. It is as if within two lines running parallel to each other within us. There is the line of the personality, the material aspect, along which our life unfolds in timelines, lifelines, family lines, geographical lines. And then there is the line of the soul, the essential aspect, along which our life unfolds in a timeless, universal, and infinite development, where unity, freedom, and love are all determining. Where these two lines consciously meet, they become a double thread that connects the most divine with the most human, the universal with the everyday. Once we recognize our duality, can conceptualize it, and fully believe and trust in it, we can begin to apply our currently limited consciousness to the growth of that limitless soul consciousness. This is a process in which we increasingly identify with the spiritual aspect within ourselves. Identifying with it is as if our attention shifts to another core. Apparently, we possess that ability. we see ourselves as a time-bound creature with a divine spark in our hearts? Or is it the other way around? Do we see ourselves as a growing new soul in a temporary body? You understand that this difference in how we perceive ourselves can also make a significant difference in how we experience the events in our lives. A difference in the decisions we make. We realize that there are activities which promote the growth of the new soul within us. We can also engage in things that are neutral or even detrimental in this regard. Our lives can then transform into a stance that is increasingly soul-orientated, initially irregularly, like a flash that penetrates you, for example, when you experience something unusual or unpleasant. And later, more like a constant background awareness of your duality. A very effective way to further put this new orientation into practice is during, or preferably before, our sleep. Those who sleep with soul orientation make the soul conscious, awaken it. In this context, it is good to draw attention to a specific activity of the spiritual school of the Golden Rosicrucian. Since the founding of our spiritual school over 100 years ago, efforts have been made to form a group body, usually referred to as the living body. Through the soul-oriented activity of many pupils, the group has attracted an atmosphere and energy field around it within this space-time life field in which the Gnostic light is highly concentrated and active. We also call this a new life field or a pure astral sphere. During the sleep of the body, the growing new soul consciousness can connect with this field. Thus, during sleep, this becomes your new place of rest, a resting place where, at the same time, the building blocks of light are present to nourish the light garment of the new soul. A pure place without disturbances, where you can spend your nightly life perfectly safe in the living body of Gnosis. We also refer to this as a light bath in this pure astral field of the spiritual school. As we mentioned earlier, the activity of Gnostic light is concentratedly present. Therefore, everything we need for our development into a new human being is present here. The Gnostic wisdom, the protective love, the active life force. During the light bath, during the sleep of our bodies, the image of the new human is, as it were, impressed into our own astral body. And then we can awaken with the message of the light still clear in our minds and in the eyes of our hearts, and thus begin the day. Or, as Hermes says, when the eyes of your heart are already active within you, you will find your way to heaven, yes, the image of God will lead you on that path. For the inner orientation towards this image has this characteristic. Those who have once begun with such an orientation, it draws upwards to itself, as the magnetic stone draws iron.
Friends here in London and online. We invite you for discussion, questions, and input you may have from this philosophy presentation. And I know we started already with question. No. So maybe we can address that first. No.
It was just about the symbolism.
No, but I think the question was, what is our school of the government? As it can be known about.
Yeah.
Friends, let's try to speak clearly to the microphone so that friends at home can hear us.
So maybe the preference?
No, just just to keep our voice, our voice clear.
Okay. Well, the School of the Golden Rosicrucian is Christocentric, so a cross would be naturally an important symbol for such a group. But instead of the emaciated figure hanging from a rough-hewn wooden cross as some sort of inspiration, which has been foisted on the public in general for like 1700 years since the impulse of the Christ mission and what followed, that peak of Gnostic understanding was formalized in a way to continue the Roman Empire, basically, Roman constant Constantinus took elements of it, and that formed the basis of Christianity, which eventually split into two: the Orthodox and the Vatican controlled. So, but that would be what we call exoteric, the outward appearance of some sort of taking the elements, spoken word of Jesus Christ in the Bible, but that was obviously manipulated a lot, and things were left out that were actual conversations, and we can find those in the Apocrypha, which means to shut out, to brush, to put one side of John and Judas. But so the golden cross then, and with the rose at the center, so that gold is a metal which is more or less that isn't tarnished, retains its luster, high value, because it's not tarnished. It gives that idea of eternity. You know, it's been used in many different ways in religion. The icons of the Orthodox religion, the golden backgrounds, and so forth. And it's purity. It's pure. It's not adulterate. It's no mixing. So obviously, we're talking here about two conflicting things going on in life, and we experience at first the material, the temporal. You have to drink that cup to the bottom, basically, to realize that every effort will be temporary. It will have a period of rising, shining, and fading, and then we have to find another objective to keep this urge of what am I doing here? Why am I here? What are these circumstances which I myself am sharing with other members of humanity, and have tried in their own ways to provide some sort of offering as to the solution for that. So there is this urge within the human being, and it cannot be repressed. And there are certain times when that can be directed towards the truth, you know, which we call gnosis, wisdom. It's a Greek word which means wisdom, but it is the wisdom of what is the purpose of the human being's trial and improvement activities in this world. And when we've had enough of that, we can find some alternative. And then we're pinning the golden rose to the cross. So esoteric, so that the cross is two beams. One is vertical, you could say that inspiration from the eternal world of immovability, no change. It's into the world of life and death. Everything that's born must die, and we suffer with that, but it has to be that way because we never anything perfect here, and it has to be constantly churned. So that's why we get different cultures, different civilizations. So we are like the personality beings, like caught between those two. And there we experience what was talked about in the address, that we can then find truth in that, find a sense of balance, sense of perspective, brings in another approach, and we can feel that a sense of withdrawing from the confusion, at least confusion, could be chaos if it goes on a spectrum, that's there in ordinary life. And we live in a world where we hear nothing but conflict in different areas, and we are shown the whole spectrum of what humanity is capable of. Pandora's box is definitely open, and the last item in there is hope. Hope that we can, we can find that way. And it's a sense of other values, other perspectives, coming and putting into context the crazy stuff that happens of human beings still being compassionate, still understanding, not judging, but for ourselves, we do judge ourselves because we need to do that in order to respect. And that activity is pinning the golden rose, and that because we come from a tradition of Rosicrucianism. I don't know if you're aware of that. Rosicrucianism, yeah. And that road, you know, you can read the information that's available on the website.
Related to Mary Magdalene, the rose.
Mary Magdalene. This was a personage in close contact with Jesus Christ. The questions moved on now, so I hope
Okay,
Mary Magdalene
something
was a figure, but was the patriarchal approach of the Vatican has suppressed that figure and elevated Mary, the mother of God, so called, as they put it, but Mary, the mother of the Jesus Christ, Jesus, and that is a way of dealing in their followers with the heart, the feelings of wanting something to shine a light in our lives, in the confusion of our lives, and that is a devotional aspect of Mary, not Mary Magdalene, who is said to be of disrepute and so forth. But actually, if you look at the Apocrypha, she had very interesting conversations with Jesus Christ in private, not public, because that was parables, that was for the public at that time. They weren't ready for the true teaching of Jesus Christ, which is now being brought in general. So maybe that helps Mary Magdalene. There's a lot of information about
her,
about her.
And
And in a way, it's representing the heart. Of course, Christ, Jesus Christ was a harmonized, the head, the heart, and the actions, which we are asked to reach out to. So this distancing from the material world is not just in your thinking or your emotions, but it has to actually have the basis of your subtle bodies within the astral vehicle, which is mentioned, and the etheric vehicle, and the thought body, you know, the thinking faculty, and so that's you cannot separate that. You know, we are trying, in fact, to balance the male and female aspect as the basis of complete harmony in the consciousness. That's the soul consciousness which we are attempting. And the first stage of higher consciousness or soul consciousness is seeing this world, the trickery, the deception that goes on as the first stage. Until you reach that, we're actually walking in a desert. Jesus Christ had that and meets the adversary. That's the first stage when we say, right, I know what it is and I'm looking for something else.
Let's say that I always heard about the whole crush everywhere in the world, but I'd like to know when it was created and who created it, gold and.
Well, there is a good.
Sorry, Dennis, I'll just repeat the question
Oh,
for those.
sorry.
Or you can repeat.
Yes, thank you for your help there, Dario. Where does it come from? The Rosy Cross. There are many different groups using that word. And what is the source of that?
In fact, sorry, there is a question from home that speaks, says we mentioned being Rosicrucians. Does that mean that we're all connected among other orders like Amorc?
Yeah.
Perhaps people have heard of.
Yeah.
And what is the relationship with the Rosicrucian Brotherhood? Do we have same beliefs? Do we have the same kind of basis? Maybe we can go in that direction.
Is anybody else?
I would just say that Amorc is, I can't go into all the various aspects of it because I haven't, the latter one, the Brotherhood of Rosicrucian, I haven't investigated that. But I know of Amorc that it is said that it is more cult-based. What I would say is that it is focused on what we call, I suppose, the world as it is, which can be referred to as dialectics, but we really say the world that we live in that attracts us, the things that we aspire to within it, that we want to achieve, etc. And it's very much based on internal self-promotional abilities. That could be astral travel, telepathy, etc. All kinds of things that the ego and the personality would wish to develop, which is all possible, intuition, etc. But there would not necessarily be a focus of that on actually service necessarily to others. It is focused on the inward development of one's personality. Now, obviously, if we had someone else here from, they might say, well, no, we are this and that, and I can't. So I won't say that there's anything wrong with that. If anyone was on that path, that would be part of their path, and that would be something that they would be experiencing. And so these fellowships, all of them, anything that's Christocentric, are existing alongside each other, and we are drawn at a particular time to look at and be curious about things. You know, what does this mean? And does that resonate with me? And do I have a feeling that that will, that is a path that I could follow and take? Does it make sense to me? And so we're all very individual, and we have these personalities. But at the end of the day, Golden Rosicrucian is really saying that we need to know thyself, as Socrates said, know thyself, stand back and see what's driving us, and see if we can step back from the egocentric impulses that are within us, and not desire those things for our self-gratification or empowerment or whatever we feel that will bring us, to stand back and to ultimately become a sort of vehicle so that the divine, the ineffable, the immovable can work through us to do the whatever. I mean, the personality doesn't completely disappear. Don't get me wrong. It's because that is a true reflection of the interests and things that we have in this world and we live in. So that will be amplified. Basically, we will just work to make sure that people can understand this way of reaching the divine. It's very important that in our lives, that if we have these urges, to follow them and to make sure that we act.
Our school is not a school of self-development. It's a school of self-initiation, as both Dennis and Julia explained. It has Rosicrucian and Gnostic traditions. It's almost a turnaround from this nature. We look at this nature as an aid to understand where we are and to see our suffering and to get back to that core, that what we symbolize in our school as the rose of the heart, or the spirit spark, or the eyes of the heart that were mentioned in our contemplation. So what I mentioned is a school of self-initiation, meaning that we, each of us, have to find that spirit spark, that rose of the heart, that gnosis, that inner wisdom, and let that grow. And the change comes from that inner connection. And the school is there to create this field, as also it was mentioned in the contemplation, that helps us let that spark grow and flourish. The rose of the heart, the rosebud flourish, and that divine spark help us, well, not us as personality, but help that immortal being that we're connected with turn around and go back from where it originally came from the divine world.
Sorry, friends, we have a hidden panelist that is helping us from home. Michael, who would like to add something on what Cora was saying. Michael, please come in.
Thank you, Dario. Just to add something that Cora was speaking about, because when we speak about the self, I think it's very important to understand what is meant by that. So in the School of the Golden Rosicrucian, we speak about the ego, and the ego would be the accumulation of past experience and future anticipation or anxiety or things that we try to predict for our personality. And what happens is that we tend to identify with this ego consciousness, which really it's very ephemeral. It doesn't really exist. So it's an accumulation of these thoughts and these feelings. And what we tend to forget is that at the core of our being, there is our true essence, which has been referred to as the spirit spark, which we refer to it as a divine essence, simply because it doesn't work within the paradigm of the ego, which is just flipping between the past and the future all the time. And if you had to observe your way of thinking and the way that you interact in your daily life, what you normally tend to do is you use past knowledge or memory and you superimpose that onto the present, and then you tackle things in your everyday life with that past knowledge or with this trying to anticipate things with a future thinking of what could potentially happen, which is usually a result of fear. So in order not to suffer the consequences of certain actions, you try to predict what could potentially happen. What we do is then we get caught up in this game of identifying with this past identity and all the things that we've accumulated in our lives, and we call that me. And these future aspects that we also call me, because we're trying to navigate through life in this way. But what we're always forgetting is that there's a present moment, and that present moment is so overlooked that what we don't see in it is that it is actually it's more than just a time spatial thing where you're flipping between past and future. It is the now, and the now is extremely powerful. And the now is really the center of our being. So if you had to observe yourself in the way that you work internally and then the way how you reflect that in your external life, you start to see that you're not in the now and that you're constantly flipping between past and future. So I think one of the major requirements, going back to the symbol of the cross, where you have the rose in the middle of the cross, that is your presence in the now. That is the focusing. It is let's say, the grounding in the very essence of what you really are. So that's where you're not listening to the noise in your head, which is telling you this and that, but you're actually the silence in that gap in between all those voices in the head, which is the powerful observer, which is the real essence of what you are. So what it is, the whole idea of grounding within the cross and centering yourself there is actually centering yourself within the very essence of your being. And by doing that, this is where then you get the connection between the heart, the head, and the action, which is the symbol of the cross as well. Because then rather than just thinking reactively, which is what we do most of the time, and it's because we've been programmed to do that because of all our past experience, in which we're actually, reflecting into the future. By being in the now, we're able to create that pause, that gap, to allow us to react, to make choices, to think. And at the same time, not just to think with our minds, but to think with our heart, which means that we feel the situation. So we open ourselves to the situation and we give ourselves to the situation fully. And that means that you overcome the self in order to do that. So it's not about what am I going to gain as an individual, but what is the experience telling me? And now that the experience is speaking through me, how can I react through it?
Thank you, Michael. Great.
I just thought it might be useful to go back to the question here. where does it come from? And I
Yeah.
think we should respect the question enough to sort of take it out of the personal, and we can talk about it, but you can't relate to our experiences perhaps. So it's starts with a character called Christian Rosicrucian. Somewhat legendary, somewhat mythical, who apparently lived in 13th century, along with, of course, the literature surrounding the Holy Grail, the Arthurian legends, Galahad, Lancelot, and Percival, and you need to orientate yourself perhaps if you're interested. And of course, it was, you know, very live in France and in the southern part of England. The basis of that is spoken about in one of the books of the school called The Alchemical Wedding of Christian Rosicrucian. And one of the founders of the school has written a very good commentary on that process of change that Christian Rosicrucian went through. He was, like we are, trying to understand what is this world, and having certain experiences where decisions had to be made. You know, it's like the Grail stories. He goes somewhere to where there is a gathering, and then he sees the Holy Grail, and then he's next morning wakes up and it's all gone. What happened? We are having these inspirations. It talked about them in the text. We'll go back to that. It's talking about sleep. Yeah. So the first bit about where it comes from, hopefully I'm addressing that. And of course, there was two other books as well, written in 16, 14, 15, and 16, which were the Call of the Rosicrucian Brotherhood and the Confession. And then there's the Alchemical Way and the Board, founders of the school. If you look on the website, which is referenced to, you can read that and orientate yourself as to how that character, that personage went through moments of decision making, his thinking process. He was caught in a pit, he had to grab a rope and drag himself out, and then, you know, he was going on a path, and then a dove was getting attacked by a raven, and he didn't know which, there was a fork in the road. This is a little story that we can maybe think about how it works for us. It's inspiration to keep on, you know. So it's interesting, and it's part of the tradition of Rosicrucianism, which is what we're trying to talk about now, to say it didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't one person like we have a lot of today who says now had visions and creates a religion around it. This is something which is the return of the eternal message of the universal teachings brought to us in our 21st century, brought, well, 100 years ago. This school has been operating in Northern Europe and then spreading out across the world. And so that's the tradition, but it was speaking about sleep, the benefits of sleep. If we are, so in sleep, we don't have our normal thinking and feelings, and we leave them behind. But if we are engaging head on with sensory experiences, that is going to carry over, you see, into sleep, and it'll just be based on astral experiences instead of the light. So we're doing this in the daytime. I think Michael was saying we've all been trying to say it happens because, you know, it does question you, you know, it divulges your motivation to do it. I think that's what we can say. And so if you're truly serious in wanting to change your consciousness to what is available, higher consciousness, that is about this horizontal life, then you must use these perspectives talked about, but also this more esoteric aspect in the sleep, and this is preparation for sleep. You know, we can't be, I don't need to say what the instructions of today, much more than perhaps even 20, 30 years ago. But we're engaging a lot more in materiality, technology, emotional excitement is at the high of the scale nowadays, and that is a task, preparing oneself, calming down, folks, not letting the worries of the day, or your worries, or thinking about somebody else's worries. This is what we do. This is the work, and we have to get the tools out and start digging and find out about what makes my subconscious life such that it gives this fruit, like a tree, a little fruit. You judge the tree by the fruit, and my fruit is no good, and it's rotten. Why? Because there's something in the tree, and the tree has the upper part and it has the roots. This is what we're doing. We're going into that level of subconscious where it works in ordinary life, where we get annoyed or irritated by activities, or we get stimulated by them, but also in the other third of our life, sleep. That's a third of our time on this earth. So don't you think it's good to use it for good purposes rather than just being passive? The consciousness isn't just passive. If it's just dealing with the superficial things, surface things, yes, it will be, but you can actually direct your consciousness. Yes, and by doing that, you're taking more control and not letting outside forces inside. What is your perception of life?
Thank you.
No question. No question marks.
We have no questions. We have a few comments. One was reflecting back on Michael's comment and the MS London Live, saying ego is the past and future perception is the present. That's the sweet spot where the magic happens. So yeah, finding that anchor in the consciousness, becoming more and more self-aware. So observing oneself. We could even speak of self-knowledge in the way we think, in the way we feel, our reactions, in the way we behave. All of that has its roots, really, if we observe, in the subconscious, and even more so in the unconscious. And so moving away slowly, but surely, and becoming more and more aware of how we are moved, how we are lived effectively, rather than living, how we can constantly react to stimuli, to whether they're internal or external, becomes a tool to find that maybe a space like the one we create today right now, but more and more in our own life, in our own self, connecting to that golden rose that is waiting to bloom. And there was another comment saying that the original teaching of the middle path is relevant also in here. And where is the middle? The middle of our being.
The middle of the cross,
Right.
the rose in the middle of the cross. Yeah.
The golden middle.
The golden
ratio.
Yes.
So all these is it's daily practice for the members and pupils of the Golden Rosicrucian. It's a practice that we cannot force in a way. We can't employ the same consciousness, the same egocentric consciousness to change itself, to somehow pull itself out of its natural state. And so we need to engage with the other key that opens up the gate in the heart. And we do so, starting with that observation, with self-knowledge, and then applying the second key of connection to that inner core, which becomes more and more conscious. It's calling us, it's calling every human being. Of course, we use poetic words in a way, one couldn't really use religious words, it doesn't matter. It's a stirring. It's a voice. It's the feeling that many people have that, well, life cannot just be surviving, waking up, getting to go to work, come back, cook for kids or whatever, go back to sleep again and again, repeat. But something deeper. And many Rosicrucian groups, they recognize this. Each group, each community, not just Rosicrucian, but each community has its own role, in this spiral of awareness and consciousness. Defining who is higher or lower is not really the point. Finding where we are and where we long to be, that's the point for each of us. And yeah, we do that in our own life. We do that in a community, supporting each other. The Golden Rosicrucian has been founded in the Netherlands in 1924, sprouting from an impulse in the 19th century that saw the theosophy with Madame Blavatsky, the anthroposophy with Steiner, and then the Rosicrucian Fellowship with Max Heindel, trying different ways, but in the same spiritual current to awaken humanity. In that current, the founders of the Golden Rosicrucian, Jan van Reichenborg and then Katarose Petri, founded this spiritual school, not in contraposition, but yeah, again, to give another impulse and support people, and from Holland and Europe, then South America, North America, Africa, Asia Pacific, and now we live in an age where maybe the limitations of space are coming, are being transformed. That's why we work also online. We reach out to people wherever they are in the world. We still meet in person, like here in London. Today, this weekend, there are groups meeting in Brazil that we know of. There will be others in Toronto, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Montreal. So we are a large community. But then we go back to our own life. Who's in front of us? Who is in front of the mirror? But also, the relationships that shape our life, and that we can transform with these different, applying this different key, this different perspective, and transform from dynamics of sometimes control, sometimes self-affectation, and so on, to different dynamics. And we invite you to do so. You don't have to be in a spiritual school. It's for each of us to find our own way, to connect to our own heart, to our own core.
You mentioned Gnostic magic. Somebody spoke about Gnostic magic as a statement. I don't know if you want to pick up.
It wasn't so much Gnostic magic. It was a middle path, but we have other common questions, so maybe we can go in that direction. There's Joseph from YouTube asking, is the monad the same as the spirit spark? And somebody replies, spirit spark is more personal and embedded in each individual, while the monad is more of a universal absolute principle.
Yeah. The spirit spark atom, which is the last remnant of eternity within that's accessible by the human personality. This is not through any training or psychological approach. It will not be taken advantage of like that. That's why we say you can't prove yourself to access this. So the way you need to understand this is to accept certain parts of a perception, the elements to what allows us consciousness, material consciousness, consciousness focus on materiality, or the possibility of a consciousness that can focus on spiritual understanding, gnosis. So that's we talk about, because of that, we need to accept that there's something called a microcosm, which is a spiritual vehicle, let's say. It allows the personality to engage in incarnations, one after another. And that microcosm is like the womb for that personality. Was spiritual entirely, but has fallen into the material spheres. Not necessarily, you see, the material sphere has two sides. It has the visible and the invisible. Invisible is where beyond the veil of life and death. And that's where reincarnation is the other side of reincarnation, where there's time for reflection for the personality based on what happened and what relationships, karmic relationships, before another go on the carousel, as it were, of life, to another chance. Because in life, we have will, some element of free will, not entirely, because we have it taken away from us by all these distractions that we're trying to point out. So the monad is that point of contact for the potential contact for the developed personality to reach some spirit soul consciousness. So the spirit is entering the natural soul, you'd say, the refined and cultural element of the personality. The two can create this new soul, and that's what it's talking about. It's not the soul of improving your talents or something like this. It's a different consciousness, essentially. It's a different way of looking at things, not how we engage with necessarily with our material life, but the important thing is how do we see it in clear way, not being deceived. So the microcosm is influencing the personality. Depends when you're born, what experiences you have, what karma you have, and that's also what parents you have. You inherit genetic aspects of personality, because the personality is your health and wealth, and your everything that happens to you. But that's just the starting point for the spiritual development. And the monad, we are trying to break away from duality to re-enter oneness. In Sanskrit, nirvana means that ending of things, that nothingness there, of this personality. It's like blowing out a candle. It's gone. And that is the highest you can achieve. That is reuniting with the unity, not this conflict. Where do I find myself on the scale of any two opposites you would think of, love, hate. Always have to position yourself in order to say, well, I'm going to take that point of view. I'm going to have that identity. But this is something where we leave all that human engagement with this world, and we're reaching for this reinstatement with the oneness, which is everywhere. It is this, supernatural, spiritual creation of this world we live in. We just haven't got the faculties to perceive it. We are narrow in our view. We just can only see certain colours, but we know there's other levels of frequency beyond them, ultraviolet and infrared, but we just can't see it. That's a similar thing. We just our way of building up a reality is the building blocks are just not there to give us the breadth of understanding of what is this eternal being or creator God, or how do they communicate with the human personality, which has decided to ignore all of the distraction all of their own personal traits, as it were, family, and have a truly independent perspective. Until we've built that, we are going to have a lopsided view of what the spiritual aims are. So Gnostic magic, everything we do just falls like sand through our fingers. But understanding Gnosis means that we have cleared out enough of this interfering stuff from the material world to hear the voice of the silence. That is the title of a book by the Theosophist, the initiator of Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky, and the School of the Golden Rosicrucian, Jan Verrijpel. They're publishing that book this year in English. It's already in Dutch, but I haven't read it. But I'm looking forward to hearing about that, because this is one of the elements of what we do, what has been done and indicated in that Vedantic tradition, because Theosophy relied a lot on the Indian tradition. In fact, it is still there in India, more strong than in the West. And so they speak a lot in the Bhagavad Gita of detaching from this world, renouncing the conflict. And when we have that voice of the silence, whatever we do, it is directed in a way that it doesn't break up. It doesn't have no meaning. It has purpose. It reaches others, or whatever it is that we feel we are being guided to provide, because it's not all about us, you see. Everybody thinks it's about my self-development, but it's actually coupled with, in tandem with, that is for others, the rest of people who have not yet, or trying to arrive at a similar perspective. So not this element of using Gnostic magic is for these purposes, eternal purposes, the inspiration of the eternal world, and not for selfish reasons, which mostly religious movements end up in doing.
I have one million questions, but I'll just do this one because I'm in England, so that's a great opportunity about the Holy Grail and the Arthurian legends. How is it connected, and what's the meaning of the Holy Grail in the Gnostic point of view?
The question from London is touches on the tradition here in England, touches close to home with the epics of the Grail, so the search for the Holy Grail,
Yeah.
and the Arthurian tradition as well, which is connected. Yeah.
What's the connection here?
Could I say something?
Yeah.
But you need to use a microphone.
Well, I've been very interested in the Arthurian legends, and it's so good to come across a school that embraces the Grail mystery, if you like. And the thing about a mystery is that you it's like beyond our normal capabilities of understanding. So like all these knights, they went out and they had most of them had rather unfortunate adventures, didn't they? And you would have thought they wouldn't have been so keen to enter into such a dangerous and didn't seem to be very fruitful. But as far as the Grail is concerned, we see it as something we fashion within our own being, like it's a spiritual thing. And once it's created, it's a place in which the divine essence can rest or manifest and radiate. And anyone who obtains that, and the only one we know is Galahad in the English tradition, or Parsival in the sort of more continental, who achieves that. And it is the ultimate Christ-like act of reaching perfection in this world. And when you reach it, you cannot manifest in this world any longer. You are then drawn up into the divine realm. And so, you know, that's what happens with the Grail. It sort of comes and goes, doesn't it? And Jesus, after his resurrection, he comes and goes and eventually leaves. So we're talking about two realms, and our true, as true humans, our true home or realm where we should manifest is the sixth cosmic domain, we call it, the divine realm. And we are stuck here in the seventh cosmic domain of matter. And it's the delusion is there. It's amplified by adversarial powers, like Dennis was saying about Jesus in the desert meeting the adversary and being tempted 3 times. So we stuck here, and really we need some sort of guideline to begin with. What is it all about? What can we do to get out of this mess we partly created, but largely inherited? And it's a process of relinquishing everything that we are, actually, to become or to allow something that is of another realm to manifest in and through us. I don't know if that helps.
I see a lot as awakening and ascension.
There's many stories and legends, and most of them are allegories, like the alchemical wedding of the Golden Rosicrucian, the Grail legend, even the Harry Potter story has a symbolic meaning if we look at it with a microscope. For me, the Grail, I'm not a specialist in the story by all means, so I think Michael knows much more than me. But when I think of the Grail story and a round table, for me, it takes my mind to the microcosm, what Dennis mentioned before, our immortal being that is damaged and needs to be repaired. So our immortal being, this microcosm, is linked to the 12 constellations, and it absorbs radiations from this world as it is, whilst there is that middle, as we spoke about, the middle of the cross, the rose of the heart, the spirit spark that needs to become the Grail, and that's what we call the 13th eon. So the microcosm is linked with what we call 12 eons, or 12 radiations, 12 constellations of this world, and there is a 13th one, we call it out of this world, that can touch us through the heart, and that builds up the Grail, the new human being that can grow. That's what brings to mind the legend of the Grail, though I have very superficial knowledge of all the intricacies of the story.
Yeah, the end story of the round table, there's 13 chairs, isn't there? And one is empty, and that's traditionally called the siege perilous. That, you know, like some people when in a family, if someone's away and they're missing them, they'll put a chair out of the table as if they were meeting them, and that is that symbolism, and that seat is only for Christ, the return of Christ.
Brings back to the 12 disciples and Jesus being it also brings back to the Pistis Sophia, which is one of the Gnostic
That when I said Mary Magdalene,
text.
I was too
Right.
much.
Now it all connects, like Cora was saying. This is not knowledge that belongs to one group or another. It's we call it universal wisdom that touches humanity at every touch point in history, in different cultures. So it's expressed in different words, with different images, just so that the consciousness of that time or that place can capture something and then use it to then transform. So even our own understanding today, it's obviously just a kind of an image is not the reality, because the reality transcends our ability to understand it. But just like at the end of the contemplation was saying the image of God, which we know it's always something that comes from our own perspective, right? We can't have an image of something that completely transcends us, and yet that image pulls us up. As long as we don't attach ourselves to that image, or to a concept, to an idea, but keep exploring, keep opening ourselves, keeping that 13th sit in our own consciousness open. And friends, we are kind of at the end of today's meeting and encounter. For the friends here in London, we invite you to stay a bit longer, have another cup of tea. We have magazines that you can take with you. For the friends at home, we invite you again to visit our website, but also to check our YouTube channel. Next week, we'll have a new presentation, which will be the first in a cycle of 3. And it will be around the power of words. The whole month in March, we'll explore how we use words, how we sometimes manipulate. And so words obviously are the effect of energy, the effect of our intentions. So from the personal to the general, the world events, everything is touched. But if we become conscious of our words, then we can also transform life through a different way of, what we explore today effectively, a different way of approaching life with a different consciousness. We thank all the friends that followed us online. We couldn't take all the questions, but please take them to the next presentation. And we thank the panelists, both from home, Michael, and here, Dennis, Julia, and Cora, for your insightful explanations and for your witnessing.
Thank you.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you for your attention. And
Please come upstairs if you have time. Cup of tea with us or something.